In a forgotten corner of town, a soul was clinging to life. His frail body lay motionless, barely breathing, covered in dirt and scars that told a story of unimaginable pain. No one had stopped to notice. No one had cared. He was invisible to the world, alone, broken, and on the brink of giving up. His eyes, once full of life, now held only fear and despair, as if he had already accepted that this was how it would all end. But then, everything changed. A soft voice broke through the silence, a voice filled with compassion and warmth. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone stopped. Someone cared. What happened next is a story you won't believe. It's a story of love, of unwavering determination, and of an unbreakable bond that would transform both their lives forever. "I couldn't turn away," she said later. "He deserved a second chance." Her name was Emily, a woman with a heart as big as the world and a deep love for animals. She had spent years rescuing those that others had given up on, but nothing could have prepared her for what she found that day. Driving home from work, something caught her eye. A small, unmoving figure lying near an abandoned lot. She almost didn't stop, thinking it might just be trash or debris, but something inside her told her to turn around. As she approached, her heart sank. It wasn't trash. It was a dog. He was barely recognizable, his body frail and covered in matted fur. There were deep wounds on his legs and sides, and an old rusted chain hung loosely around his neck. His breaths were shallow, and his eyes, they were filled with so much fear and pain that Emily couldn't hold back her tears. "Hey, buddy," she said softly, kneeling a few feet away. She didn't want to startle him, but he didn't even flinch. He just lay there, too weak and defeated to respond. Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of bread she'd been saving for lunch. Slowly, she extended it toward him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as if some small spark of hope had ignited, he lifted his head ever so slightly and sniffed the air. "That's it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're not alone anymore." It took several minutes, but eventually, he inched forward, dragging his body with what little strength he had left. When he finally took the bread from her hand, Emily knew there was no turning back. She had to save him. But his journey to safety was just beginning, and it would be anything but easy. Emily knew she had to act fast. The dog was in terrible shape, and every second mattered. Gently, she tried to lift him, but as soon as her hands touched his fragile body, he let out a sharp, heartbreaking yelp. It was clear he was in pain, and she could feel the weight of his suffering. "It's okay," she whispered soothingly, her voice soft and steady. "I've got you." She grabbed a blanket from her car, carefully wrapping it around him to avoid causing more pain. He trembled in her arms, too weak to resist, but still terrified of what might happen next. As she carried him to her car, she could feel the way his body shivered, not just from the cold, but from fear. It was as if he had no reason to trust her or anyone else. The drive to the emergency vet was tense. Emily kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, hoping he would hold on. "Just a little longer," she kept saying aloud, as much to herself as to him. When she arrived, the vet staff rushed to help. They quickly assessed his condition: severe malnutrition, deep infected wounds, and dehydration. The vet explained that his injuries were likely caused by prolonged neglect and possibly abuse. His chances of survival were slim, but they would do everything they could. Emily stayed by his side as the vet worked, refusing to leave him alone. She could see the fight in his eyes, even through the pain. He wasn't ready to give up just yet, and neither was she. The first night was the hardest. He was hooked up to IVs, and the vet warned her that the next 24 hours would be critical. Emily sat beside him, gently stroking his paw, whispering words of comfort. "You're safe now," she said, her voice filled with both hope and determination. "You're going to make it, I promise." And even though he couldn't respond, there was a moment, a small flicker in his eyes. that made Emily believe he understood. The days that followed were a roller coaster of emotions for Emily and the dog she began calling Max. His recovery was slow and uncertain, but each small step felt like a miracle. At first, he couldn't even stand. His body was too weak, his muscles too atrophied from months of neglect. Emily would sit by his side for hours, encouraging him with gentle words and soft touches. One morning, after nearly a week, Max tried to lift himself off the bed. He wobbled and fell, but Emily saw it, the tiniest flicker of determination in his eyes. She cheered him on, clapping softly, and said, "That's it, Max. You can do it." It took days of trial and error, but eventually, he managed to stand and take a few shaky steps. As his physical health began to improve, so did his spirit. His wounds, once raw and painful, started to heal. His fur, patchy and dull, slowly grew back with a soft sheen. Emily made sure he was surrounded by love and care every step of the way. She introduced him to soft toys, and though he didn't know what to do with them at first, he eventually began to play, a clumsy swat at a ball, a curious sniff at a stuffed animal. The biggest breakthrough came when Max wagged his tail for the first time. It was a small, hesitant wag, but it brought tears to Emily's eyes. She knew it was more than just a movement. It was a sign that he was beginning to trust, beginning to feel safe. Over time, he started to eat with more enthusiasm, leaning into her hand when she pet him, even following her around the house with a spark of curiosity in his eyes. Max was transforming, not just physically, but emotionally. The dog who once cowered at every sound was now beginning to seek affection. Emily could see his personality shining through. He was gentle, playful, and so full of love. Watching him grow stronger each day was nothing short of incredible, and it reminded her why she had never given up on him. Max wasn't just healing, he was thriving. Months later, the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Max was no longer the frail, terrified dog Emily had found that day. His once bony frame was now healthy and strong, covered in a shiny coat of fur. His eyes, which had once been filled with fear and pain, now sparkled with joy and curiosity. He had come so far, and his journey was nothing less than inspiring. Max had grown into a playful, affectionate companion. He loved running in the yard, chasing after balls, and rolling in the grass. Emily's heart swelled every time she saw him wagging his tail, his face full of life and excitement. He followed her everywhere, a loyal shadow who seemed to understand just how much she had done for him. The bond between them was unbreakable. Max wasn't just a rescue dog anymore. He was family. Emily often said that while she had saved him, he had saved her too. His resilience and courage reminded her of the power of love and second chances. One day, as they sat together on the porch, Max resting his head on her lap, Emily reflected on his incredible journey. She couldn't help but smile as she thought about how close he had come to giving up, and how far he had come since. "You're my miracle," she whispered, running her fingers gently through his fur. Max's story didn't just end with his recovery. It became a message of hope for others. Emily began sharing his journey, inspiring people to rescue and care for animals in need. Max's transformation showed the world what love, patience, and compassion could do. Today, Max is a happy, thriving dog who is loved beyond measure. His story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for a new beginning. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one person who cares enough to stop and say, "You deserve a second chance." Max's story is proof that no matter how broken or hopeless a situation may seem, love and compassion can create miracles. There are countless animals out there, just like Max, waiting for someone to see them, to care, and to give them the second chance they so desperately need. If this story has touched your heart, consider taking action. Adopt, don't shop. Visit your local shelters, volunteer your time, or donate to organizations that rescue and care for animals in need. Even the smallest act of kindness can make a world of difference. Emily's journey with Max reminds us all that it's never too late to make a difference. Max was once on the brink of giving up, but thanks to one person's determination and love, he now has a life filled with happiness, safety, and joy. Imagine the lives we could change if more people stepped forward to help. Let Max's story inspire you to be that person. Together, we can give every animal the second chance they deserve. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to share this story to spread awareness. Because every life matters, and sometimes a simple act of kindness can change everything.